now to our speaker, Marisola, so take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this invitation. I'm really excited that we're being invited to have these conversations with different audiences on campus about the work we've been doing. It's an indication, a continuing indication of university-wide support for this work. So my name is Marisola Jalili Chacho. I came to Marquette as a doctoral student in philosophy, and I am now Associate Director of the Education Preparedness Program, which I'll be talking about. I have a PowerPoint that we're going to follow through, and I will share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So my hope is to give you a little bit of a background into how this program came into existence, and then explain some features of the program and what it's trying to do with respect to decarceration and transforming not just the Milwaukee landscape in that respect, but the university and what kind of role it plays in that work. What is Jesuit education for when it comes to this kind of work? And then I will end with some future hopes for the program and this work. And then I would love to have some Q&A time at the end to hear your questions or suggestions and connect a little bit further. So the Education Preparedness Program is housed in the Center for Urban Research, Teaching, and Outreach, which is directed by Dr. Robert Smith. And this is the leadership structure. It is a collaborative leadership structure spanning different departments in the university and different levels of experience, knowledge, and expertise. So we have Dr. Teresa Tobin, who will be the faculty director. I'm the associate director. We are currently looking for a community liaison. I'll say more about that, but this will be somebody who is just as impacted and who will serve an equal role in the leadership team of the program. We have Dr. Darren Wheelock as a faculty liaison. He's also in the presentation today. And we're also in the process of finding a carceral studies fellow who will be an existing doctoral student at Marquette in the humanities who will serve in a leadership capacity. That is also a position that we are conducting a search for. So keep that in mind as we talk about the program. If you know of students who might fit that role, please reach out to me. I want to start by also saying that the program, which again I'll talk about as we move forward, has received quite a bit of support internally from the university and recently was awarded an Andrew W. Mellon Foundation grant to really catapult it in this direction. So we've been doing piecemeal work in terms of teaching and developing partnerships with correctional facilities and community organizations for a long time, since 2015. But now we're at a point where we can really formalize and launch this as an essential feature of Marquette's educational offerings. And I kind of want to start with the Marquette Mission because the theme of this talk is purposefully the role of the university in decarceration. This is something that there's a nationwide movement, I think, to offer resources to people who have been impacted by the justice system. And this work has been done since the 60s, at least as I know about it in the U.S. From the Inside Out program from Temple University. And there are various places around the country that promote this kind of Inside Out model, which is a blended model where traditional students from universities are combined with students that are incarcerated, and they all take courses inside of prisons. This is just one model out of several nationwide that are providing education opportunities to people who are incarcerated. Other options are the Pell Chance program, we'll talk about that a little bit too, as well as the BARD Prison Initiative, which is a degree granting program, four-year degree granting program, and many others. But for Marquette, what is Marquette doing? As a social justice-oriented university with a Jesuit mission of educating the whole person for a meaningful life, also as an institution that cares about racial justice and that is situated in the Milwaukee landscape as an institution with resources that can take a leading role in that. So I pulled from the actual mission, Marquette's mission, right? Students that come to Marquette join a community whose members believe that education must encompass the whole person, spiritual and moral, as well as intellectual, the heart as well as the mind. Students receive a firm grounding in the liberal arts, preparation for work in a world of increasing complexity and diversity. And the part about racial justice, Marquette is cognizant of its position as an educational, professional, and cultural institution that has the advantages of being in the heart of the city. At the same time, all of us who are at Marquette notice a discrepancy between the demographic landscape of Milwaukee and what students and faculty and leaders are represented in our student body and in our campus. And Marquette has lots of powerful initiatives that address racial justice issues, one of those being the education opportunity programs. I was myself a beneficiary of Upward Bound, which is an EOP program, and learned from that experience as a first-generation college student of an immigrant background, how essential it is that these kinds of things exist in universities, because the culture, no matter where you are right now, is not really equipped to deal with underrepresented students of various kinds, and especially with students who are currently incarcerated or returning from incarceration. But they are an underrepresented group, and it's crucial because of Marquette's mission of addressing racial justice and also being liberal arts oriented and an institution that cares about service and educating the whole person, that this segment of the population is included in campus programming. Not just included, but that Marquette is made and seen as accessible by various kinds of students. Okay, so our idea with the Education Preparedness Program is to create a prison to school pipeline. And this is Dr. Rob Smith's wording, actually, but it's really powerful because something that we have heard a lot about is the school to prison pipeline. We know how it is that public schools have started to serve this role of maintaining racial disparities in who gets to succeed in life and in school, and then how certain people continue to get funneled from public education into the carceral system. We want to play a role in reversing that. How can educational institutions play a part in reducing prison populations and decarcerating? That's essentially what is guiding our work. And so this is the Education Preparedness Program. The initial ideas of the program were kind of existing in disparate conversations around campus, and they didn't come together until 2019. But when they did, it was through the combined efforts of myself, Dr. Teresa Tobin, Dr. Darren Wheelock, and Dr. Robert Smith. And we decided to come up with a three-pronged approach to including and involving and making accessible opportunities for currently and formerly incarcerated students. And the first facet of the program is the blended course model with a specific humanities focus. And I should mention that the Mellon grant that we received that I had listed previously made creating this robust kind of program possible. We had been offering a blended course since 2015, and we had received money to pilot it and develop partnerships with correctional institutions. But because of some small internal grants and because of that major grant, we were able to expand the blended course model. So we offer humanities-focused courses, blended courses, in liberal arts and humanities across departments in the university to inside and outside populations. So I'll explain a little bit about these different kinds of blends. The first kind is an inside blend, and these courses blend student populations. They are similar to inside-out courses. They enroll a combination of traditional Marquette students and people who are currently incarcerated, and they take place inside of correctional facilities. We have been offering a course like this at the Milwaukee Women's Correctional Center since 2015, and we'll be offering multiple courses like this in 4 institutions regionally, starting in spring of 2022, and I'll get into the details of that a little bit later. So they blend student populations. We also have outside blends, and these blend either instruction or student population or both. That means that they enroll formerly incarcerated students in combination with Marquette students, and or they blend instruction. So Marquette faculty members co-teach these courses with Marquette graduate students and community experts. This is something that we were able to build into the program as a result of some internal support as well. People who are closest to the solution are sometimes closest to the problem. And what that means is that they understand the problem from a first-hand perspective. So what we're able to do is hire people who have been impacted by the justice system to co-teach these courses, understanding that the expertise is different between established faculty with a research background, graduate students that might have passions but are still developing their talents and abilities, and community experts who have a lot of on-the-ground knowledge that either of those populations might lack. It's been a really potent combination, I'll just tell you that. Every time we've taught these courses, whether it's inside blends or outside blends, everybody involved has expressed the mutually humanizing nature of this kind of education. And so when I say humanities focused, I don't mean that just surface level like we offer humanities courses, but I mean that in terms of pedagogical approach and representation and outcome. What do students feel like being in the classroom, and what do we all get out of doing this kind of work? Essentially, what's important about the blended course model, as opposed to just offering courses to one population in an isolated way, is this idea of developing relationships and trust, which people who are incarcerated and returning from incarceration have expressed to be crucial and life-saving. And that makes sense if we think about how few resources, how few of those social resources people are given when they're on the inside and when they're released. So just being able to have that, not just as a service, right? So imagining that as mutually humanizing, not just as a service we're doing or giving to people who need it. It goes far beyond that. It's guided by this idea that to truly understand ourselves and our role in systems that dehumanize others, we have to understand how we operate in relation to people we have no contact with otherwise. So the ability of these classes to bring together people who are not in contact otherwise is incredibly potent and powerful. So it takes this humanities approach on a whole other level. And we haven't, now that we have a fully established program with a lot of courses, we'll be able to do more statistical assessment of how this influences recidivism and stuff like that. But I can say confidently from just an anecdotal standpoint, everyone who's been involved in these courses has expressed the things that I'm describing. So that alone has fueled the work even at this stage. The second feature of the program is wraparound academic and related support. And this also comes with the acknowledgement that, one, people on the inside have different needs, that, for example, they can't easily access campus resources, but our intention is for them to feel as close as possible to being Marquette students and able to access all the resources any Marquette student would. So providing tutoring support, academic advising, TAs, library services, career advising, anything of that nature, making that accessible to them, whether digitally through platforms we're working to develop with the Department of Corrections or in person as we go in to teach the courses. But this is especially relevant for returning populations. And we learned this when we started teaching some of our outside blended courses, that a lot of that students were struggling to meet their life needs. And so it's really difficult to expect excellence in academic performance, however we define that, regardless of how intelligent a person is or how motivated or how grateful, when you don't have housing or healthcare or child care. And so addressing this part is crucial in making this education actually accessible, not just in theory, but actually accessible. It's something that we can learn a lot about from programs like EOP and other education programs that cater to these populations around the country. But we do know that some things we can offer are a physical location in the CURTO space where designated people will be there to help any student from this population, the reentry population, with mentoring. That's crucial. So this again brings up the role of the community liaison, somebody who is justice impacted, who will have a leadership role, and who understands the needs of this population on a level that some of us who have been immersed in academia maybe don't anymore. So learning from that, mentoring, advising on a holistic level, not just academic. And then financial aid, application support, career advising, writing center, as well as referring them to other services they might need. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as it pertains to our relationships with community organizations who offer reentry services. So our hope is to integrate the work we're doing with a whole array of work also being done around the city. So again, I want to stress the importance of wraparound support. Very few underrepresented students feel like they can navigate the university culture if they are first generation or students of color, or if they've been impacted by the system. So that just goes without saying, it's a necessary feature of the program. And then the third pillar of EPP is a partnership with MATC. They are one of very few institutions who have a Second Chance Pell program. Some of you may have heard that Second Chance Pell has now been, or the Pell Grants for incarcerated students have been restored. That's going to take a while for that to take effect, and Marquette ideally would be eligible for that if we demonstrate success with this program. But at the moment, MATC has it. And MATC also tends to be seen as more of an accessible institution by people who are returning from incarceration. So they get students who have been impacted by the system. Some of them might want to pursue four-year degrees. And in that case, we want to create a transfer pathway where students who are just as impacted getting AAs at MATC can transfer those credits to Marquette and continue their education through EPP to earn four-year degrees, or vice versa, finding ways to use the credits people earn for the courses that they take at Marquette to count towards their degrees at MATC. And this includes people who are returning or people who are currently incarcerated and getting most of their education through the Second Chance Pell Grant program. This leads me to also emphasize that all the courses that we offer are free of charge to currently and formerly incarcerated students. That also feels like a crucial feature. To really make this impactful, it has to be accessible. And they are transferable credits, so they could be used towards any other degree they're pursuing, or they could supplement a vocational degree, or they could just be enrichment courses, right? So we're not trying to force a certain educational path. The idea is to provide opportunity, and however that can be made available and fit with individuals' needs, we want to be able to do that. Lots of talking. Here's some detail about the kinds of courses, the kinds of blended courses that we teach. So this is our roster for spring of 2022. We're offering 3 Insight courses. One of them is Invisible Sentence, Policy and Practice for Children Who Are Impacted by Parental Incarceration. So some of these are thematically directly pertinent to the populations that we're working with. Psychology of Human Development of Children and Adolescents in Diverse Society. Creative Writing, Poetry Writing for Change. And then some other courses, again, some of the courses might not be directly pertinent, but they are also serving this broader humanistic approach that we're talking about. So they're engaging a complex topic in a complex way between disparate populations that have a lot to learn from each other. The outside courses we're offering next spring include a course that I'm co-teaching and that I'm teaching this semester as well, Engaging Mass Incarceration, Justice, Freedom, and the Arts. This is an honors course, and the honors program has actually been one of the first programs at Marquette to support our work. They've allowed us to offer the blended courses as honors courses before we had any other form of institutional support. I just want to emphasize that because it really gets at all the different components of the university that are integrated and that are going to continually be integrated in the work that we're doing. Surveillance, Law and Society, and History of Native America. I would take all of these courses. I wish I could. This other pillar, the wraparound academic support, as I mentioned, includes mentoring and tutoring, writing center, library resources, financial aid assistance, career counseling, but also it pushes us to work collaboratively with other organizations and other educational institutions in the region. And I'm going to see if I can get this link to work for me right now. Oh, that's too bad. Okay. I want to draw your attention to the Wisconsin Decarceration Platform. I think I'm just going to have to Google search it because my link is not working for whatever reason. This is an initiative, a community initiative that involves all the following organizations, but is not even limited to this, to integrate reentry support and services in the city of Milwaukee and then regionally and then statewide. The idea here is to have a place where institutions doing the work, again, that are not in communication with each other can link efforts. So providers being able to come together and shape what the reentry space looks like in an integrated way so it could be more accessible to people who need the services. And part of how we're trying to do this is by developing one digital place where anybody who's about to return from incarceration or has recently returned can search for features that can search for services that they need. And so it's categorized by theme, reentry, food, health, jobs, housing, all. And we're working with UWM, MSOE, and community organizations to put this together. So it's fostering that collaborative atmosphere that I've been describing that needs to extend beyond the university, right? So collaboration within the university is crucial, but outside the university is crucial. Which is also to say that, Marquette is a respected institution in Milwaukee, but it's not been doing a lot of the groundwork in ways that some other community organizations have been. And so also respecting the wisdom and depth that comes from organizations that have been doing this work for a long time and being able to learn from them about how we can best fit what we're doing in the overall structure of reentry services. So we plan to use WDP as one of the ways that we direct our students and refer them to services that they need and help them contact organizations and get set up with things like healthcare, housing, and jobs. This relates again on the theme of collaboration to the partnership with MATC, which, as I said, at the moment looks like credit transfers and tutoring help for some of the courses. And we want to eventually, however, establish a 2-year to 4-degree transfer pathway. And this is along with the vision of creating the Milwaukee Prison Education Consortium. So continuing with a collaborative approach, but also recognizing that very few places have all the resources necessary to provide all of the work. Milwaukee has a wealth of resources, and that includes some top-tier universities. And by that, I mean, first and foremost, MATC, who is the first university in this city who has been doing most of this work and working with populations that have this need. So MATC is one of the institutions that we're building the collaboration with, but we want to be able to build a structure, a consortium, where MSOE, UWM, Alverno College, universities in the region can offer courses of the kind that we're offering and build their own programming. And so somebody who's interested in pursuing a 4-year degree can take courses from any of these universities and be able to combine those credits through a program that would offer them a 4-year degree. Like I said, this is not for everybody, right? So the idea here is to have options. The closest thing we're coming to is a certificate program. All the courses that we offer, all the blended courses, are offered as ESSV courses. These are engaging social systems and values courses. And so our hope is to, at the very least, provide a certificate to students who take a minimum of 4 of these types of courses, a certificate in engaging social systems and values that can supplement any other kind of education they're doing, including vocational. The other is the AA program, using courses that we're offering or that any of these institutions would offer towards their associate's degrees. And then the other option for those who would want to pursue it is a 4-year degree. And like I said, I think the most feasible way to do this is through a consortium. And it's not just the most feasible way, but I think the most desirable way to do it, because we want to show that people can come together around these issues and do the work and hold each other accountable and learn from each other. Our hope is also to, once we establish MPEC, and of course it's going, we're going to need a lot more time and support, financial support, to be able to get to MPEC, but the hope is to honor R.L. McNeely, who was a social justice activist and had a law degree from Marquette Law, and whose dream it was to build education programming for incarcerated and justice-impacted students. And R.L. passed away before we received the Mellon grant and before we announced that EPP was formally launched. So he never got to see it. But it was one of those dreams that we're grateful, actually, to continue on as part of his legacy. And so our hope is to eventually develop the R.L. McNeely Institute that would offer these 4-year degrees through a consortium. And that's all I have for now. I would love to hear some questions or get into some more specific details of any of what I just discussed, or go back to any of the slides. But yes, please feel free to ask.
Maricel? I can't hear, lost your sound. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Oh, okay, now I can hear you. What has the program been doing about finding employment for students afterwards?
That is a great question. So the program was officially launched last year, but we had been offering the blended courses prior to the establishment of the program. And so the blended course, with Inside students, we had restrictions on being able to communicate with them while they were still incarcerated. But we offered our contact information, and so we did have several students after graduation reach out to us, and we served a mentorship role and a professional advocacy role. So we wrote letters of recommendations for jobs. We were references in their job applications, which it has a lot of pull if you have Marquette faculty being your references, no matter what job it is. And we were also able to invite a former student to be a keynote speaker at an event that we hosted, so paid her an honorarium for that. So I guess the broad answer is case by case for students who were incarcerated and were released, because we didn't have any formal structure. With the formally incarcerated students that were enrolled through a partnership we had with MATC, one student stood out as especially talented and interested in continuing to be involved in these courses. And so he was the first person that we hired as a co-facilitator. And that's Mahmoud Watkins, who's co-teaching the Engaging Mass Incarceration course with myself and Teresa Tobin. This year, he taught it the past year, and we will teach it again next spring. So we are helping with professional development in this sort of piecemeal way. Our hope is to formalize that. So to formalize a way that we keep in contact with students after they take courses and continue that mentoring, advising role, even after they have finished taking courses with us. And of course, with WDP and the wraparound support that we're now building, be able to refer them to jobs that fit their needs. So the more connected we become to community organizations, such as Employ Milwaukee, which caters to populations that we're working with and helps them find jobs, right? Developing that relationship, and so being able to refer people back and forth. It's going to look a lot more structured, but even in the small ways we have been working to help students, we've found that they are receptive to what it is that we're trying to do.
All right, so can I add a little bit to that?
Please.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Robert. And one of the ways that we have found ourselves in the sort of the ecosystem of reentry is by, as Marcella just concluded with, we are part of the engine that's steadily being developed to address reentry on multiple sectors. There's been a number of organizations that have been in this arena for decades. We've got a couple of faculty who've been working with groups like Project Return and others. As Marcella mentioned, there's partnerships with Employ Milwaukee and other workforce development entities in the area. There's also a regular set of opportunities for folks who are reentering to be a part of what are somewhat like job fairs, not quite job fairs, but fairs where resources are made available. And so we are one of many of those resources that are part of the ecosystem. And part of what we do is the thing that we do relatively well as a university, which is offer the academic support and then also offer the necessary professional development along the way, whether it's, the soft skills that come with various courses, the formal education, and then emerging ideas like career resources, resume building, all that kind of stuff. So that's the engine that's the part that we're playing in the broader engine, as Marcella noted. The specific question of who gets employed after is really not in our wheelhouse. I want to make sure to say that because there's a set of workforce focused organizations that we partner with who are helping us understand our role in the preparation toward the workforce, if that makes a little more clarity for you.
Marcella, and Rob, I would also speak to Rob's point about we are trying to find, like, no organization can do all things. Our primary objective is education, but to the extent that we are involved in the job readiness part of of reentry, is also keep in mind that once CFI currently formerly incarcerated students become Marquette students, now they can access Marquette resources, which includes like career services, right? So that's another way in which we can help support that, but that's not necessarily like our primary objective, right? Marquette is in the business of educating people, and that's what we feel like we can do quite well.
Can I ask another question then?
I see a hand up. Yes,
Put
absolutely.
your hand up first.
I'll get the hand and then we'll return to you, Robert. I don't see who's raising the hand, so just please start speaking.
Thank you, Marisola. So in terms of like recruitment for those who are formerly incarcerated, what does that look like for the courses that are blended on the outside?
That is a fantastic question. And it looks a whole bunch of different ways, some of which we've used and some of which we are just developing. The first one is through the partnership with MATC. So through their Second Chance Pell program and working with the directors of that kind of programming who have intimate knowledge of the student population and asking them for referrals. So that's how we had Mahmoud, for example, enrolled, somebody who started his education on the inside, was released, was continuing it on the outside through MATC. And then when we said we're offering these kinds of courses, they were like, oh, here are some students that have liberal arts interests, and here's who you can enroll. And so we worked with them to do that. So again, the partnership angle is crucial. The other is as we develop a formal understanding with the Department of Corrections, and as the Pell program gets reinstituted, then we'll be able to have more formal channels of people who are on track to pursue degrees and to know who those people are, and then work with particular wardens at institutions with recruitment. And once we're inside, a lot of these places we'll be also offering info sessions to populations who are pursuing education in whatever capacity and engage their interest. So it's a combination of the institutions that we're working with, determining eligibility based on criteria that we have, and then choice amongst those populations as they're screened in that way. The only screening, and just to speak to this, we don't look at nature of offense as eligibility criteria. We take, the safety measures and all of that are separate for us. This is not part of the interpersonal dynamic with the students. Some students feel, it's pertinent to share parts of that when having class discussions, but it doesn't factor into our screening, I should say that. So different institutions have different criteria of which students are eligible, such as people who are on work release or people who are already enrolled. And so it's a lot of moving parts and segments, and it takes coordination among those things. But so far, recruitment has relied on our existing partnerships. And now that we have more partnerships, they will rely on those, and it will be more complicated, but also eventually more efficient and more fruitful, I hope.
That's incredibly beautiful. And then, sorry, part 2 of that is, what does recruitment look like for those that are currently incarcerated? And like, how are you allowed to share like how many different partnerships you have in terms of facilities?
Mm-hmm. So recruitment, again, is similar for those populations. Wardens, based on how different people are situated within the system, determine eligibility criteria. And to be honest, that's something that's still very opaque to me. This is part of what we're trying to make more transparent, how institutions make decisions about who has access to what, because some institutions, might see this as just enrichment. Some might see it differently. So there's some gray area there and some opportunity to align around eligibility, and maybe even for us to have an influence on who's eligible. But the second part of your question, let me remember it. Would you mind repeating it? I got lost in my own words.
Oh, if you just like have more information in terms of like the institutions and facilities that you all are connecting with.
Yes, so MWCC was the one that we piloted the blended courses with, so that's one. Racine Correctional Institution, Milwaukee House of Corrections, Milwaukee Secure Detention Facility are the 3 upcoming ones that we're developing partnerships with. But our MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, will be with DOC in general, and so we'll be able to add more institutions as we move along, as our offerings increase. But at the moment, it's those 4 institutions, and I think it's also good and wise to not go all in too fast, right? So to build slowly, develop the programming. And so these 4 institutions have expressed direct interest in doing this kind of partnership with us. So our hope is to, after solidly establishing foundations there, whether, even if it's a space where we can hold our courses, and maybe even a liaison who can facilitate between institutions, just building up from that. In terms of enrollment and numbers, typically the courses that we've offered enroll a maximum of 24 students. So that's about 12 traditional Marquette students and then 12 currently incarcerated students. That will vary. I'm sure that will vary depending on institutions. But we don't want classes to be larger than that. The idea is to also keep them discussion oriented. And so, if you think in terms of numbers, if we offer 3 courses as we're doing in the spring that are inside courses, enrolling 20 students, say, each, 10 of them being incarcerated, then that's 30 incarcerated students that are enrolled in our courses in any given semester, given our current offerings. We hope to scale up from that in future years to 10 course offerings, and then eventually, as we develop a consortium, to, I don't know, as many as is possible. I hope that answers your question.
It did. Thank you, Marisola.
Sure. And Robert, if you want to ask your question, feel free.
Yeah, you answered it. My question was about eligibility, in terms of how students are selected and what criteria you use. So thank you.
Of course.
This is a great initiative. Good to hear about it.
Thank you so much. It means a lot to get that support because it is new, and it's new to us, right? But it's not it's being done everywhere. So I should also say that it's new and it's also what we should be doing. So how do we do it in a way that fits the Milwaukee need, the Marquette mission? That takes creativity and discussion. So it's really exciting that the features of the program are being received well. I do see another hand. Feel free to ask your question.
Thank you so much for this presentation. This is really a fantastic effort. As somebody that is currently working at Marquette, and for those of us that are at Marquette, what can we do to help support this initiative? Is it getting the word out? Is it, encouraging students to enroll in these courses with incarcerated students? What are tangible things that we can do to support this amazing effort?
Thank you for that question. But I mean, the first thing is exactly what you're doing, which is seeing your role in it, right? And taking responsibility based on your capacity and your interest and passion. So thank you for that. That's one thing. Fundraising is the most important thing, right? We want sustainability. This cannot be the kind of thing that goes out with a boom and then fizzles. That's not, we are serious about sustaining it. And so that takes money. We know that institutions, universities are in a financial crisis right now. Even with that, Marquette has been able to offer us what they can, including tuition, right? Free tuition for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated students, which is a big deal. But we want to be able to to go back on this collaborative model, different ways to support the program, because there are many entities who have an interest in seeing something like this succeed. And so how can we reach out to the connections that we have to build support for something we all want to sustain? So I think fundraising is the first way we can talk about support, reaching into alumni networks, students, community members. And the other is, yes, promoting the program to students, especially students who you're on an advising basis with, or who take a course and they stand out as particularly interested in these topics. The Mellon grant also allowed us to hire some undergraduate students as interns who are going to play a crucial role in structuring the program, the programming, the courses, the public face of the program. And we just hired 2 interns for this spring, but also thinking of students who might play, maybe work 5 hours a week, or who have some special talent or some special interest that could be fit into the program. We could also support that. And Rob and Darren, you are welcome to present other ways that people can support us. I'm sure there's many.
Go ahead, Darren.
No, go ahead, Rob.
One of the things I was going to say, and Marcel, you mentioned this a couple times. I want to make sure to amplify it. The program is fundamentally and formally launched in January 1, 2021. So we actually, as much as we want to and have hit the ground running and have quite a bit of momentum heading into the grant cycle, we also just need a little bit of patience. We need this first quarter to really put together the HR related components of what we're doing. And any of us who have had to grapple with that know that, just that process takes its own time. Getting everybody hired, getting everybody in the mix, putting the parts together. And so sort of a deliberate anxiousness is kind of where we are. We're being very thoughtful, but we want to run. Sometimes we can run, then we got to slow down. That's all kind of part of it. And so ideas that are emerging from our conversation today and questions that are emerging are really, really great. Now we just have to go back as a team, huddle up, and start to answer them and move forward. So both continuing to be supportive through questions, idea sharing, and then also just being patient a little bit as we put the structure together formally.
As the faculty liaison, I would make an appeal to faculty and instructors to participate, is to offer courses, because we can't get up to our targeted number of courses for the spring of 2022 without faculty that want to participate in this program. Now we have embedded stipends and incentives and rewards for faculty that do, but at the end of the day, this program will be as successful as the entire Marquette community is willing to make it, right? Certainly, Marisola, Rob, Teresa, and I, we've kind of got this ball, this kind of stone rolling down the hill, but for this program to really reach what we feel its potential could be, it's going to take some contribution from the entire community, I think, to the original question, right? And for faculty and instructors, that's teaching classes.
I'm glad you mentioned the faculty part. Yeah, because there is interest. There are many faculty members at Marquette who want to teach courses of this kind, and so we're set for spring 2022, but for future years, right? So keeping in mind what we're doing, reaching out to us if you have an interest. I see a question, can emeritus and retired faculty participate? That's a good question that I think Darren should probably take.
I was about to ask that question myself. Thank you, Laura.
My initial answer is I don't see why not. In what capacity is probably on Darren's wheelhouse.
Yeah, this now connects to Rob's point of there's some programmatic components we haven't fully fleshed out and developed and really even thought about. Like I hadn't thought about emeriti faculty and how they might participate, because I have no qualms about it. And again, we want, we want all those interested in helping and being involved to have a space for them. So to the extent that which we can accommodate that type of teaching arrangement, I'm all for it, but we would have to kind of work out the details and specifics of what that would look like. Something that, to be perfectly honest, I don't think we've spent that much time talking about as a steering committee. So perhaps this is an agenda item we can add to a future meeting.
Absolutely. And I also see a question about grad student and staff participation. And again, I co-founded this as a grad student, right? So it was crucial for us to maintain graduate student involvement in the work, which is why we created the Carceral Fellowship or Carceral Studies Fellowship to support a PhD student in the humanities who want to continue their career in that direction. But that's not just it. There have to be other ways that grad students and staff can get involved, including, and so as I'm thinking about this in terms of emeritus faculty involvement, grad students, staff, one thing that we are inspired by is this idea of a scholarly house of studies. I don't know if any of you have heard of the Thrive for Life project, but they have, they're based in New York City, and they're in partnership with Columbia, NYU, Georgetown, and they also have what they call an Ignacio House of Studies. It's a Jesuit house of studies, and it's kind of like a Jesuit scholarly house, but not forcing a spiritual direction, mostly just the Jesuit mission, right, of caring for students. So it's kind of like this is crucial and it's inspiring because in addition to creating a community of scholars on a campus, it's providing transitional housing, which is one of the most difficult parts of the reentry process, securing housing. And so Marquette, if Marquette were to take the initiative in creating something like that alongside what we're doing, that would be an opportunity where staff, grad students, and emeritus faculty can really play a crucial role as mentors, as advisors, as tutors, leading support circles. There's all kinds of things that can be done in that capacity. So that is something we're inspired by, potentially a future venture. Again, it would require resources, but it would meet some significant needs, and it would be it would again really fit with Marquette's mission.
If I can jump in on the grad student question really quickly, part of what we are charged to do as our roles with CURTO is to be a place for undergraduate and graduate research and professional development opportunities. And so to any graduate students that are attending today, I would say, if you have any ideas about the ways you want to be involved, let us know. You all might have the thing that moves us in a way that we hadn't even thought or considered. And it also may be supportive of your graduate education and your future success. So, and Marcel is really reflective of that. So make sure that if you have some ideas that might be beneficial to either undergraduate or graduate student communities, let us know.
Yes.
Or if you're just curious about anything at all, don't hesitate, after this.
100%. And I didn't emphasize enough that, of course, this is catering to currently and formerly incarcerated students, but not just, right? This is also for Marquette students. The transformative education we want to give, the high impact education we want to give, and also just shaping their future career paths in terms of what matters, how they address it. So it's not, so when I talk about it being mutually enriching, humanizing, it's not less so for the Marquette students just because it's catering to a different population, because this is also the population of Marquette students, right? So removing that idea also that somehow, the incarcerated students are less Marquette students, and starting to think in terms of, inclusion, going far beyond even what we understand inclusion and diversity to look like, far beyond what people look like and represent diversity, but ideas, relationships, career paths, nexus of conversation. So graduate students, especially in the humanities, have a lot to offer. Another thing that's coming to mind right now that we want to pursue are these things called think tanks. The Inside Out program uses them. And they are combined think tanks where people both from the inside and from the outside come together to generate programming, course material, to ideate, to envision, to support, to tutor. And it's another way that grad students can be involved, and it can serve their existing, graduate needs, or it can be built into the program as something that we offer. So as Rob said, right, patience with these things, we're just starting and we're starting strong. We want to build all of these features, but the think tank idea is one way that I would love to see graduate student involvement in particular. We have 5 minutes left. And Amanda, I don't know if you needed some closing time for anything, or if there's one more question that I can take.
Yeah, you could take one more question. I just need like a minute for the announcement at the end. So if anyone else has a question, they can ask it.
Well, if there are no questions, I'd like to talk about the soup recipe. So I think I was asked to share a soup recipe along with my details, and it doesn't really fit with the theme of the program, but it's for, I can't pronounce it, it's in Greek. I grew up in a small town in Albania, really close to the Greek border. And, every fall, my grandfather would slaughter a chicken and we would make this rice and chicken soup. And it's kind of like the Greek version of chicken noodle soup. It was this very comforting meal that I would have. And I got to see it from start to finish, from like beheading the chicken, which I never liked watching, but there's something to be said about consuming that which you have a direct relationship with, all the way to the end. And I've started making it now for my daughter here in the US, and it's one of those things that immediately immerses me back to that experience of comfort. And so I shared it with all of you. If you ever want to try something that resembles chicken noodle soup, but is a little bit homelier and really, really delicious.
Thank you for sharing that. Oh, sorry.
No, that's it. I just wanted to say thank you, and I don't have anything more to say. I'm really grateful that you all attended, and I hope to hear from many of you about how to work together in the future.
And next week we have a soup of substance on Wednesday at noon, and the topic for that, or the title for that event, is Pro Nonviolent Choice, a Case for Pro-Life Feminism. I dropped the link to how to sign up for the event in the chat. And thank you, Marisola, for speaking, and everyone for coming, and have a great rest of your day.
You as well. Bye.
Thank you.